And, in my, I think probably 40 years into my life, I learned sometimes you like it's a lot better when you let people just do their jobs and you stop trying to do it for them.
Rolling toward the unknown. When you're riding the big wheel, you're not alone.
Welcome back to Riding the Big Wheel, your go-to podcast to inspire you on your own personal and professional journey of life. I'm Michelle Seger, your host, and on today's podcast, we are continuing our conversation with Jeff Schmidt, CEO of ECI. Jeff is a leading-edge technology innovator, thought leader, evangelist, and serial entrepreneur. We are delving into very interesting topics and relevant things to your life today, like the fourth industrial revolution, workplace transformation, and how two CEOs manage under one household. So join us for part 2 of the conversation, and we hope you enjoy. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting that we were talking about, and you just touched upon it, is how you're leveraging AI in business to help with ideal customer profiles, to help with understanding where to focus. We are continuously being asked, right? And part of the work that we do is segmentation of your client and looking at, how you go to market and what that looks like. And Jeff, you know this. I mean, there's like exorbitant amount of information and lists that companies buy, right, to understand what the opportunity is out there, all of them highly imperfect. And I just see these incredible possibilities with what's being built with AI to provide something that's a bit more prescriptive. All of the like when we would go out and buy traditional data sources, and I won't name them because I don't want to ding companies, but traditional data sources, they all have their flaws. And if you can say, here's the criteria that I really want to know, right, and start to leverage that. So I'll think about, I sell supplies into hospitals, let's say, and maybe number of beds would be one of my criteria, maybe the number of OR rooms or whatever that might look like. Very difficult to get that, very expensive today. I think about the possibilities of leveraging an AI tool to really help for companies curate a list that's very specific to the products and services that they sell and things they sell to solve problems for their clients.
So you still have to pull the data together, right? That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about going from thesis to theory, one, I can start with my own data.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have good data in my sales CRM, I can go pull that data and say, where are we most successful? What's the tenure of people? What's the traditional? How often do I sell to them, depending on what the product set is? So if it's as a service, or I buy a product and over 3 to 5 years I replace that product. If you're a medical supply company, but you can start to run data models off of it and say, I want to understand my data first. The ability to be able to quickly, today, it requires somebody in Excel to go grab the data. They got to create the data model, and they're maybe going to use Power BI or any other data tool. And I'm going to start working through the data, and it requires connectors, other things to that data. The data has to be perfect in what you're doing. Imagine if you just said, I just want the Salesforce data and an API connected to it. I'm going to do a connection. It can be imperfect, but I still need data for total number of beds. I need to know the hospital. I need to know closes. I need to know losses. I need to know who my competitors are. And then here's all the ones. Here's where I want to go after. But now you create these data sets that you're connected to, and now you just start asking questions to it, right? Now I can have a human conversation, and now you're thinking is, okay, this is easier than me trying to go across 100 people, ask 100 salespeople. I can start to curate the real conversation I want to have.
It's amazing.
So rather than maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months of trying to get into the data, however you decide you want to create the special recipe for your organization and how you help companies is here's the 5 pieces of data that we need. And then we're going to start asking it questions. And then we're going to come back and validate it with the humans inside the business. Here's what we learned from the data. Here's the information we're getting. Okay, now I'm going to run a couple other data models on this. I'm going to start to ask questions now, because this is going to give me the intellectual capital of every salesperson that is sold and your client base that you have today. And then I'm going to deem as your total addressable market, your service addressable market, and the propensity to win. Right now, I can create a sales desk, sales development role inside the organization. What campaigns are most interesting? What's going on in the marketplace today, right? So now I can go back to it and say, hey, what's going on in medical hospitals today that would actually make them want to go change this? Are there any new laws that are happening around this? Well, I have to be connected to some database that says, here's the legal laws that are happening inside healthcare. So maybe I subscribe to, healthlaw.com or whatever. I'm making it up. Maybe there's a healthlaw.com. But I can connect to it and start asking questions, or I can have that feed coming in. And it's like, hey, there's a new law, there's something happening. And by state, because healthcare is really interesting, right? It's not in the US, it's 50 states have potentially 50 different rule sets that they're accommodating. So that ability to be able to translate that by state and what's actually motivating people to do certain things, right? So now you can curate that, and you also have the ability to modify based on what it is, but you have your basic ingredients that you're going to use over and over again. Now you can apply that to almost any industry, and the questions don't necessarily change, but the go-to-market may, right? How the marketing team goes through. But now I can truly use a marketing process end to end that I can tell if it's working or not working, because I've created this recipe. It's 2 cups of clients. It's a quart of nurturing, right? And it's a salesperson. It's 2 ounces of salesperson goodness to get to these results, right? And we should win at 40% based on everything that we have here. So therefore, I have a mathematical equation. Now I can go test that in marketplace. What can I do to tune it to get to 60%? Where do we waste time on sales? Because cost of sales is a big deal. Where am I? And it's not the salesperson, it's all the resources that have to support them in an RFP, et cetera, et cetera. Even for us, we're now doing RFPs. With every RFP, there's a database now. Here's the responses to all the things that we've done for these. So, and I can go ask Ella is, hey, the client wants to know how we handle such and such. Boom, here's our response for this. Okay, cut and paste that, drop that into the RFP. So now an RFP will take 2 hours to go put together across 100 questions of being able to go through. Or I can take the RFP and feed it in directly and say, give me a curated response for all the questions that are here based on what our FAQs are and our knowledge base. And then a human will go through and say, I'm going to customize some of this stuff and go through, but I have a 90% outcome for our best responses. And so now that knowledge basis keeps getting updated and updated and updated over and over again for whatever those are. Hey, do you have offices in Australia? The 2010 one says no, the 2023 one says, oh yeah, we do. Right. And here's what we have in market. Here's the people. I don't have to go ask people, hey, how many people are in Australia? Right. So there's these very interesting pieces that come into play on this, right? So for sales and really talking about where we're heading to, you can, again, I can turn on a dime. I can ask questions as long as I'm feeding it in. Is in the world I live in today, is we no longer live in Excel spreadsheets. We no longer live in Power BI. I'm asking the large language application the questions that I'm looking for, and then I can ask it to curate the outcome. I don't have to be an Excel wizard anymore. I don't have to know how to do Power BI anymore. I don't have to know how to give me the summary of everything that's closed over $1 million over the last 3 years. Tell me the difference between 21, 22, and 23 and what we sold inside the market. Tell me how many of those were actually replacing a prior product with a newer product. Here's the 3 products that were actually new products we bought in the market that retired old products that we had before. So in instantaneous process right now, I have that. Can you create a pie chart for me that actually shows that? Yes, I can. Right. So we're getting into really is this visual but verbal world where I'm asking the knowledge out of this system to tell me the information. Again, I still have to validate the curation that's coming to me. Like, that doesn't look right. Right. How was I at 50 million in this year, but I'm only at 30 million this year? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, I need to go look at the data. Show me the data that you're pulling together here. Right. So I don't know. It's exciting. And it's a little scary at times, because it's like, okay, I have to be on my toes a little bit more, but
Mhm.
I'm replacing busy work with brain work, and allows the
I
brain to
think
really focus on that.
it's really interesting. So I wanted to just for a minute for our listeners, just riff for a minute on this. So when I think about how I'm leveraging, now I'm not as sophisticated as you are. I'm using ChatGPT. I'll just reveal that. I do want you to talk a little bit about Ella for those who don't know who she is. But I think about just how I'm leveraging it at work. So one, we have a business intelligence person who goes out when I'm interviewing people for the podcast, who we're doing an RFP, whatever that looks like. And he goes out and researches, companies and their background and what's happening. Well, by leveraging AI, he can provide to us just infinitely more information in a much consolidated period of time.
Right.
So, what would take him hours takes virtually minutes. And I mean, virtually, it's amazing. Okay, that's one thing. A second thing is we are hiring and we tend to get a lot of resumes. And, I've got a chief of staff who goes through each one of them painstakingly and kind of helps me, reads through them, kind of helps me prioritize, just stack rank them and determine, who's going to go ahead for me to look at, which resumes. Well, you can just put some criteria into AI, right, into that tool, and it stack ranks them, gives you the reason why, bullet points 5, bullets of why. Um, Automatic disqualifiers are considered, and you don't even see those in front of you. And it literally took this person, like 20 minutes for what would have taken of really a lot of time, because we do get a lot of resumes, we get a lot of applicants. And I can just go in and look at the ones that are stack ranked, starting at the top, a quick link over to the resume, and it's been simplified. Those are just a couple of things. I mean, I also have leveraged it. I will take an article of mine and I'll say, okay, I want a quick
Right.
but then I still own the article and I go in and make, additional edits to it. So I want to get some current information added to maybe to some thinking that I've had. I go out and I'll ask questions and, things that would have taken me where I Google and research, and then I have to go to each one of those websites. It's providing those responses to me with the references. So anyway, it's just saving a lot of time. What about you?
So I think it's interesting, right? Is you can use it for different things. So I had a non-technical person at my house over Thanksgiving, who came, and was my sister's boyfriend, who came and actually cooked for us, which was lucky us.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
So if Dylan watches this, thank you for cooking for us. And so he was asking, doesn't it make it impersonal when you start using Chat GPT for things? So a message, an email, whatever you may be doing. And I said, well, let's take it into your world. And I grabbed my phone and I went into Chat GPT, OpenAI, and I just said, write an email message to Dylan that says, I really appreciate all the time and effort he put into cooking the turkeys. I really loved it. They were so juicy and wonderful. The stuffing was amazing. I appreciated how much you interacted with our family. They really loved you. And I went through and I gave it, and then I hit the button and said, generate the message. And I said, here, take a look at it. So I said, it's my words. This is putting the wrapper and making it more eloquent. And I can go from very casual to very professional and whatever that may be. And he says, this is really interesting because it's your voice. And I said, it is my voice, right? Is you can't generate this. I'm not just saying write a message to Dylan about turkeys. And here you go. So it is in my voice, but I saved probably an hour if I was going to have to write that email on my own.
So
And I said,
interesting.
I said, so imagine yourself on the way home from somebody who you've done this for, because he does personal cooking for people at their events
Hmm.
and wineries and other places. I said, you're driving home and you're like, I've got an hour in the car. So Chat GPT is like, hey, write an email for so-and-so. And here's the things I want to talk about, what's fresh in my mind. And I'm leveraging the hour, but I'm no longer I'm not trying to type while I'm driving. I'm just having a conversation. and then take that email and send it to me. And when you get home, you spend 5 minutes curating the email and you send it off. He's like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And so I think in the way that we work, right, I mentioned how we're utilizing AI from a sales perspective, from an internal perspective with RFPs, to, again, curating a response during what would be dead time in an email or for something I'm trying to go do that just helps fill the white space of where we're heading to, right? We're going to have an event where a whole bunch of people are going to come here. We're going to have a really great time. We're going to be introducing ECI's large language application, which is Ella for short, right? And here's what we're going to talk about. Here's the different pieces. Here's a little bit about Rich and his background and how he got and the innovation that was put into this, and hit a button and it curates hey, here's your invite to the people who are going to come into this. And then, hey, can you give me any suggestions that would make this more attractive? Right now I can start to ask it to do some, add in this. Add in that. I forgot about that as I'm going through. And so, it is interactive, right? Which is really fun as well. When you start saying, I forgot about this. What about this? And so again, something that maybe I would pay somebody else to go do, to take my words and put them into something, I now can run through this and I can get to in 15 minutes, again, what would have taken me maybe 1-2 hours to go through. And it's still the voice that I want. It's still my voice. It's my ideas. It's my thoughts wrapped in this pretty, and Jana always says, is I can tell when you send me something that's written by AI because it has commas and all the punctuation's right. And so now I'm like, hey, AI, can you smatter some commas around it? So it looks like it's my writing, right? So there's some fun things that you can do with it, right?
That's funny.
But it's, again, right, is it making me less of a writer? Is it making me less thoughtful? No. Does it help increase the productivity in my day? Absolutely.
Yeah, I would concur with you there. So I think this is a great point to talk, or a great time to talk about the modern workplace. We already know pre-COVID, for us, we've always operated kind of hybrid. But since COVID, boy, the whole debate is whether we're working in an office or not. I feel like so much time, effort, and energy is spent on that. And it's just unbelievable. I would love to talk to you about, what your vision is of the modern workplace. And I'm thinking about traditional office environments, it could be even in manufacturing environments, but where, people would be going in and working on that 8 to 5, like we were discussing earlier today. It's a big place where your company plays, and I'd love to hear your perspective.
So it's interesting because we're on a Zoom call,
Yeah.
and Zoom had a back to office mandate in their company, right? And they came up with geography based back to office and how much time you should spend there. So there are some pieces to this that we really have to think about, right? As again, and we have a return to office in our company as well. And so there's you can't be rigid. Maybe that's the best way to say it, right? If you're rigid in the world that we live in today, you're going to lose workforce that can be really productive. There is work effort and things that happen in person that are dramatically game changing and much faster when you're sitting together. Now we have some rules that we've also enacted through some people that we brought into the company who are like phones down, eyes on screen, cameras on. And so we want you engaged in the conversation that we're having, so it can be shorter. We do 20-minute meetings, not 30-minute meetings. We don't do hour-long meetings. We do typically 45-minute meetings. Here's the agenda. Here's what we're going to talk about. We've got to figure out how to eliminate because I think one of the things during COVID is we have these back-to-back, video to video to video that are highly unproductive over time. And we will use the hour that's given to somebody versus here's the agenda. Okay, here's where we're going to go. Here's what we're going to do. Let's be done with the call and let's go get the actions done. And so it's a little bit like it replaced email, right? Email used to make us feel productive. Now Teams calls or Zoom calls make us feel productive. My goal would be is there is just an important, in again, my opinion, and I'm not a psychiatrist, and I'm by no means a great social worker type person of understanding human behaviors. but I can tell you in my experience when we're together as a team, the attitudes, the collaboration, you can see the culture that's in the company just really come out. And, I think you encourage people to come back versus force them to come back. You find ways to make being back in an office important. I mean, being in front of clients is ultimately important. The people who are getting in front of clients are winning deals. So again, from a sales globe perspective, our in-person events where we're bringing people in and exclusive events where people are sitting inside a room together, the interaction between company to company that would never happen on a video is at a completely different level. And so I think it's important, right? I think it's important. It just generates a different type of friendship relationship. In fact, we're working on even our global employees is getting them to actually go into different markets as well. So that you're getting like, hey, I use this team on a regular basis. I want to go meet them, right? I want to get face to face with them. I want to go shake hands. I want to break bread with them. And again, that establishes a relationship that you're just, even on a video, is not going to be the same as when I'm in market and we get to have that exchange. We balance the business side against the work side, against the personal side. And I think it helps. So our world is always going to have, the genie's out of the bottle on this one. And so I think we're going to be, we're stuck with this, right? And we did, and I think in fairness to the people who want to work remote, we asked them to be remote, right? We asked them to keep companies propped up. We asked them to change their home into an office. One of my employees or team members, better said, at my prior company said, I knew I was going to have to work to live. I didn't think I was going to have to live where I work. And so those are the people who are like, please open the office back up, because I don't want to work in my living room anymore. I don't want my house to be my workplace. I want a separation in what I have. And so, like I said, there's a balance that's in there. But we have to remember as leaders also is what we ask the people to do overnight to make work, to make happen in a world that we shut off access to everywhere except the internet and a computer. And we were grateful when people did it then. And I think we have to remember to be grateful for the people who, are struggling with how to come back to work and finding ways to understand, be humans about that as well and work with them. But again, there are jobs that require people to be in office, to be together, that we know are important. And we have to balance that out, right? We help people through the hurdle of things that change and giving them time to readapt and get back. My experience again is as those people are coming back into the office, they're like, gosh, I really miss this. Like that's the number one comment is I miss this. I miss pizza at lunch. I miss foosball after 5 o'clock, or miss foosball at lunchtime. I miss seeing Mary and coming into the office. I walk into the office in New York. My line now is, who are we? And I get a loud ECI coming back, and people laugh when I come through. They're going to use, are you going to say, who are we? I'm like, do I have to say it every time I walk down the hallway now? But it creates, again, creating a fun environment where people can collaborate and work together. But certainly being in the office, you need to pick up a child from school. You got to take, your dog is your pet is sick or your pet needs you. Like we can accommodate those things just like people accommodated us. Mm-hmm. As long as we understand it's like, hey, these are temporary situations or these are requests, but the average is where we want you to be is at least 3 days a week working together with clients, in front of clients, doing the things that change, the trajectory of how people see us and how you see them.
Yeah, I think that was well said too. I think it'll end up, my ideal state, my belief in this whole thing would be that we'd end up with a good hybrid world. It was sad for me to see how companies started, putting a line in the sand as well as employees. And I thought, are we going to be able to work this out? But I think we will be able to work this out.
Look, the employees have a choice, right? That's probably the biggest piece, right? And there are companies who have just said, hey, look, we're going to start, large companies who said, we're going to go back to work. And people are like, well, people are going to quit. And they started coming back to work. And they said, okay, now we're going to go back to work full time, 5 days a week, from 3 days a week to 5 days a week. And people said, people are going to quit. And the reality is people came back to work and they thought, this wasn't that bad beforehand. Right. And again, is if you can get the productivity in, right?
Right.
There are jobs where, my salespeople being in the office, I'd really rather be in front of clients, right?
Yeah.
My senior engineers who are out with clients, I want them in front of clients, not necessarily in the office. When they have free time, come back in and educate, help people around the office go through things. But we're not as important internally as our clients are to us externally. Yeah. Our people are important to us, and that their happiness and their well-being is important. Let's find ways to blend that together. And to your comment is, as long as we know people are being responsible and responsive, then we can find the middle grounds. And like I said, we have places where our global service centers that are taking inbound calls. Those centers are set up for those specific functions. So if you're at home, you're not going to get the same infrastructure and the same support and the same capabilities. So like I said, and again, most people said we were able to do that when the global pandemic hit and we couldn't come to the office. And so let's find ways to encourage people to come back, right? It's a lot better to encourage, 3 kids and maybe a few gray hairs on my head somewhere. And certainly a lot of wrinkles from it is, encouraging my kids to do something was a lot easier than telling them. Telling them usually didn't work for me really well. It ended up in me being frustrated and them ignoring me. So
I want to talk a little bit about your leadership style and your personal brand as a leader. And I would be remiss if I didn't include your office, which is right in back of you that I can see. So talk to us about, what your leadership style is, maybe what shaped it a little, and how you express your brand, as well as like, what is it that you want? When I think about a leader's personal brand, I think about what it is that they want to embody throughout the organization, right? So basically an example that others can learn from. And how do you do that? What is it? How do you do it? And then, just days when you just aren't feeling it, how do you help keep yourself in check? I said that last comment mostly for myself.
I have a tattoo on my wrist, which is it's First Corinthians, which is love is patient, right? And so maybe that's my first piece, which is sometimes I have to take a step back before I speak. And I mentioned earlier that I'm an athlete, that I was an athlete, half of my life. And in that is the winning spirit, winning attitude, and also the willingness to call somebody out as well as be called out by others. And so I have that still today, right? I still have that spirit of win, spirited team. I didn't play individual sports. It wasn't as interesting to me. But the commitment of I'm going to do my job, and nobody's going to have to wonder if I'm going to do my job or not. And if I don't know how to do my job, I'm going to work harder than anybody else on the team to learn how to do my job. And I'm going to solicit whatever help I can to do my job well. And so that's somewhat of my personality of who I am. The other is, if I take a step back, is I'm here to serve the people who are part of this organization. My title, and people always go, but yeah, you have the title. Because I was like, titles don't matter. And they're like, yeah, but you have a title. And I get that. But the reality is my job and how I judge or give myself a grading score is who wants to be here, who steps up and is willing to be in the fight. I don't have to be the smartest person. I don't have to be the one leading. I have to have the vision. I have to know the mission. I have to state that. But I want people who lift versus lean in the organization. I want people who are smarter, brighter than me being around me, who are like, I got this, I'm going to go take it. And, in my, I think probably 40 years into my life, I learned sometimes you like it's a lot better when you let people just do their jobs and you stop trying to do it for them. Trust is an immense resolve to have, and allowing people to just go do what they said they were going to go do. And so that's, I think those are probably the core pieces, right? Is, and success in the organization isn't mine. Success is the organization. Success is the people that are around me who are grinding day in and day out. I try and remember on days where I get frustrated by things is to put myself in the shoes of the people that are around me, to stop sometimes and ask a question. Hey, how are you? I try and end my calls with, is there anything I can do for you? And that's hard sometimes because I'm like, I just want to get off this call. And if I ask this question, then maybe they're going to give me some homework to go do. I'm not always great at it. Sometimes I jump into the middle of, here's what I need from you today. And I'm like, there was a guy named Tracy Angelini who I used to go into his office. And one morning he's like, how are you? He wouldn't answer any of my questions in the morning until like I answer like, how are you today, Jeff? What's going on? How's your family? I'm like, I just need answers, Tracy. Like, come on, let's go. Like, I don't have time for this stuff. And so, you learn along the way of people who slow you down. And sometimes you have to go slower to go faster, and what those things are. But surround yourself with great people, surround yourself with people who are willing to have conflict, healthy conflict, and what that is. Understand that there's always, no matter how confident you are in your answer, there's always a slim percentage that you're not right. And weigh on that to listen to others who have a different view and a different viewpoint. And then find ways, and I think Jeff Bezos says it probably as best as anybody, which is, I disagree, but I commit, is I don't have to agree with somebody else's plan. If the plan seems doable, maybe it's not my plan, and maybe I don't agree with it, but I know the person can execute it and I need to give them the opportunity to do that, then I can commit to it, right? And I'm not going to go back and tell somebody, I told you that wasn't going to work. It's your plan, it's your job, it's your responsibility. I told somebody yesterday, I disagree, but I can commit to what you want to go do because I understand where you're coming from. So I wouldn't do it that way. But I'm going to commit to you based on the responsibility of what I've asked you to do. And so I think those are really important. And I don't know, there's probably nobody in a graveyard that probably thinks I should have spent more time at work. And so I think that balance on the personal side is, this is, what we do in leadership roles is really important. It's important to everybody, being able to have a paycheck and to be able to support their families, to grow their careers. I mean, there's this length of time that everybody has in work and what they do. But it's also important to show them that, hey, you got to balance work with personal. You got to find the blended way of dealing with the world that's out there. And if we don't do that as leaders, I don't live to work. I love what I do. Jana may tell you differently, as I do live to work. She says, like, you operate at a different speed sometimes, but I do it because it creates enjoyment, but it also helps me be better in my personal life with the things that I learn in my work life and vice versa.
That's great, said. Thank you for sharing that. So you gave me a good segue into your personal life. I did ask you, and you graciously agreed to just share a little bit about your marriage. So Jana Schmidt, I also, full disclosure, will count as a friend. She's a client, a friend, a wonderful woman who has been on my podcast before because she's probably one of the most intelligent women I've ever met, full of wisdom. And I always refer to you guys as the power couple that just, anyone can look at, right, and say, wow, what a great couple we have there. And it's a lot when you have two CEOs in one household. And, it would be interesting, I think, for women that are listening in particular, who are, climbing that ladder and trying to figure out that next step. Just, over the years, Jeff, I know that you've been a professional household for a long time, but, how do you guys just make it work?
Gosh, I think the first thing we would both tell you is neither one of us would work for one another. I think at the beginning of COVID, we're like, hey, someday we should actually, like, in fact, it was when we were in California living together, we met some people that were like they had like labeling and box companies, and she's like, we should go do that together. And I'm like, who's going to be in charge? Like that was like the first, like, there's no way one of us is going to like that's going to work. But in seriousness, I think number one is respect for each other's work and profession. Jana is an amazing individual and person, and I think she has bad eyesight because she she picked me, which is good. So, or just she was able to see past like my flaws. But you mentioned earlier is we do bounce ideas off of one another on an ongoing basis. And I joked with you is that I think it's a lot like my dad and my grandfather. My grandfather would ask him about who he's picking for the NFL games on the weekend. And my dad said, "Hey, how am I doing in your betting?" And he says, "You're doing terrible, but I bet against you every single week and I win." And so I think sometimes Jana asks me like what I would do sometimes because it gives her like the alternative way of like how to go do things. It's really interesting. So I happened to be last night talking to her about my go-to-market plan and what's going on. She is by far she's on the inside, right? We share all the time, right? Personal, professional, kids. We have 3 kids. We have 6 grandkids. Our happiest moments are with our kids. My happiest moments are with the kids when they're on baseball diamonds. That's just a fun spot to be. But you interchange and you work together. We're in Atlanta because of Jana's job. And the story that she won't tell is like we had a handshake before we got married that if her job ever asked her to go to Atlanta, there was no way I would miss her. We would stay married, but she could live in Atlanta and I would live in California. Why would I ever leave the mecca of the venture capital boom? And oddly, she was oddly calm about it. And I woke up the next day and I'm like, gosh, that's really selfish of me. You know what? We should look into this. We should take this as an opportunity. And there were things I had to do on my side to a commitment I had made in California to my current CEO. And the world opened up to us in so many different ways with friends like you, the people that we met in Atlanta. So we made the move. Our kids ended up coming here. Our kids all live here now. And we had a chance to go back and we were like, and she came back, she's like, "Hey, I got great news. We can move back to California." And I'm like, I would never leave here. Like, I'm having so much fun here. The people we've met, the friends that we've made. And so I think the ability to see past, and this isn't for me, but to be able to see past those things this was important to her. And I think from not necessarily for the female viewers, but for male viewers, for people who have spouses who have, and maybe it's just for the person in the relationship that has the career, is sometimes you have to look past your own career and say, hey, look, what's best? What are we willing to go do? And what I will say is that, my world has opened up probably 100 times in opportunities that I would not have had I stayed on the West Coast, and vice versa. Jana has given just as much to me. She allowed me to take on my first, ground up startup, where I didn't make a nickel for, I think, 4.5 years of trying to build something from scratch. We were able to invest in that. She went to work and traveled, and, we both traveled during that time, but she grinded on behalf of giving me an opportunity, which was a huge investment into me and who I am today. And I couldn't ask for a better partner in that. So, partners matter. The people who are in your life who support you, and, I'd probably say selfishly, I got more out of it. And I probably get more out of it because you said she's smart. She is wicked smart. She's thoughtful. A lot of the people pieces and pieces that I picked up have been through I like to listen to her calls when I'm sitting down below, listening in, there's just little pearls of wisdom about her. And when I meet her, the team members that she works with, and they talk about her, it's like, gosh, I want people to talk about me like that. And so like I said, there's some really, goodness that's in there. And when I look at her career, I look at the hurdles, I look at where she came from, Lubbock, Texas, a mom and two sisters, and I think she said a 1-bedroom apartment, and working to help make ends meet, to where she is today through hard work and determination. I couldn't have a better mentor as a partner in life in what we do.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So as we start to wrap up our conversation today, I wanted to ask you, like, if there were, what are like things that you really want people to remember about our conversation today? Just some interesting takeaways. If you were to say, take this away, what would that be?
Jana's, if you have a choice between taking a job with Jana or Jeff, take it with Jana. I think, yeah, I think, and maybe that's half, maybe that's half honest inside that conversation is, I think the tenets of what we talked about today is, if you think about the industrial revolutions we've been through, they've all been scary. They've always replaced tried and true things that we as human have become used to. They have given an ability to adapt over a period of time. To the conversation that you mentioned about your father, it's getting harder to adapt to change. Mm-hmm. Because it's happening so quick. I have a digital license on my phone today, and there are people like, I don't know what to do with the digital license, and I'm like, but Georgia has digital licenses now, and it's in my wallet on my Apple phone. I don't carry a license. I'm like, I'm hoping if I get pulled over, like whoever the policeman is or policewoman is, that they'll be able to figure it out. So, and Jen's like, are you going to trust that? I'm like, I have to. Like, this is where we're heading to. But if you fear technology, it's still going to happen. Mm. The path forward is going to happen. So the question is what's the vision of the future that we want as individuals? And let's aim for that. Because once it's out there, it exists. And once it exists, it can be used in any form or any fashion that humans will do with it what they want, right? Nuclear in just general, in quotes, right, has good and bad. But how we put the right rails and guardrails around it, make it livable. Some of the worst things from science are also the best things from science. Mm. And as we enter into this, is if we fear it, it's not going to stop the progression of things that are happening. So we have to embrace it and say, what's the vision? What are the good things that we want out of this? And then how do we make sure that it doesn't get used as a weapon against us? And that would be my first piece on this. The other is, I asked this one person who I always thought was a great speaker, really commanded the room, had funny jokes that were woven into 3 days worth of a meeting. And I said, how do you go do that? And I said, I really want to learn how to do that. And he said, Jeff, just be you. Don't try and be me. And I think as leaders, is just be you, right? Is don't try and be your authentic self, be who you are. Never stop learning, never stop looking at ways to improve who you are, but don't compare your leadership to somebody else's leadership. Don't compare yesterday to today. Right, except to say hey, am I 1% better today than I was yesterday? And my objective, and again, I fail at this more times than not, is can I leave people better than when I found them on each interaction, each exchange? And so, don't fear technology. It's, don't fear the future, right? Is things are going to happen. Control what we can, work to get involved, understand it. And then 2 is just be who you are, right? Don't try and be somebody different. And I think that's what's helped me accept myself, as I have as many doubts around the table as typically anybody else about not having the college education completed, grinding up, not having an MBA, not having a PhD. Like I sit around people and I think, gosh, you are so wicked smart around me. And what I have to do is be comfortable as that experience, the things that I've gone through. And I think the wisdom to know that sometimes I don't have the wisdom and to listen to others is just as important. So be content with the way that you're made and who you are, and work to make people better that are around you. And if you do that, you'll be a great leader.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, the information. Jeff, I really appreciate it. And I do hope that you'll come back.
Thanks, Michelle. And happy holidays to you as well.
Same
and
to you.
to Mark and the whole team. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, it's Michelle. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoy our podcast and know someone who you believe would make a great guest, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and let's talk. I'd love to hear your feedback, and as always, may it inspire you in your own personal and professional journey of life.